Cynicism and Seduction, Speed and Software. By John Pandaris. AmigaWorld Premiere, 1985. I stood up straighter, lost my cynical sneer, gaped rather stupidly, and elbowed my neighbors in the ribs. The Amiga had cracked my armor with sheer naked power. The Amiga is going to change the way American offices do business, but no one yet knows just how. I'm AmigaWorld's business applications columnist, and I don't know either. In this column, we'll follow the computer, its users, and its software companies. With luck, we'll stay half a step ahead of them and find out. Amiga Solutions. Amiga Solutions won't be strictly a business column in the sense of Honeywell mainframes and Fortune 500 accounting. I sold it to the editors as a business/personal productivity column to explore how people work with the Amiga in settings ranging from corporate offices to homes and the tools available for that work. I'll try to land somewhere between Amigas on Wall Street and a random software roundup, but productivity will be the general topic. That suits me because I'm a generalist, interested in how people use computers rather than in comparing the arctangent functions of WizzoCalc Release 3 and AmeriCalc 2.10. Amiga Solutions will try to spot trends and general directions in the Amiga support and software industry. I've evaluated products and pontificated on trends for half a dozen magazines, and I couldn't resist getting in on the ground floor with AmigaWorld. Snubbing the Mac. I was also hired, I suspect, as the magazine's resident conservative, or cynic. I had no connections to Commodore or AmigaWorld's parent company, CW Communications. I had already formed a healthy respect for the IBM PC and its MS-DOS imitators, 1981 vintage technology though they were, and I was impressed, but not gaga, over the advent of Apple's Macintosh. The current phrase, power user, will fade as quickly as the odious user-friendly, but its meaning makes sense in the MS-DOS world. Once you learn 8 or 9 cryptic commands and dive into a pool of rarely simple software, you can do quite well with an antique PC. I'll be the first to admit that MS-DOS's user interface takes some learning, but I never tire of challenging Mac users to a drag race. While Mac Mouseketeers delete disk backup files one by dragging them to a cute trash can, I can type del*.back 10 times. The comparison is particularly unfair to the original, January 1984, Macintosh, which challenged computing's de facto standard with barely a handful of available programs and a bunch of hardware handicaps. Today's 512K Mac, with outside companies' hard disks and PC vendors' mouse and window additions to MS-DOS, shows the value of easy instructions for powerful software. But the first Mac was best appreciated as a preview, a demo, a scratch and sniff ad instead of the full bottle of perfume. The 1984 Mac promised terrific software, but it simply lacked the hardware to rival the mighty IBM. Apple's ads billing themselves as the inventors of the personal computer were shameful lies, and their battle cry of an insanely great computer was merely silly. Computers are tools, and no computer is insanely great. Bach, Hawthorne, or filet mignon may be insanely great, but not a computer with only 128K, no industry-standard parallel printer port, and a single disk drive only slightly quicker than the Commodore 64's infamous 1541. First impressions. My cynicism was tested on April 19th, when AmigaWorld editors and I attended a sneak preview of the Amiga at Commodore's Pennsylvania headquarters. Except for having only one built-in disk drive. Okay, a microfloppy is fabulous, but single drives make vital file and disk backups a tiresome process. The Amiga looked impressive. A nice keyboard, lots of interfaces and expansion ports, a sharp display. To be exact, it looked like a PC and worked like a color Macintosh. To keep the entry price low, Commodore configured the basic Amiga as a 256K machine, but priced expansion to 512K at only $200. Any serious user would typically configure it at 512 kilobytes. An Amiga engineer showed off the ultra-colorful graphics, smooth animation, and magnificent sound with a program that turned the Amiga into a banjo, a snare drum, and a ballpark organ. Dealers and writers oohed and ahed. The Amiga was clearly a performance-caliber musical instrument, a CAD drafting system, and the best arcade game computer ever designed. I was cranky, having awakened at 3:45 a.m. to catch the plane. The micro-floppy drive wasn't as fast as an IBM hard disk, and the stereo speakers under the demo table wouldn't last a week on my desk. More importantly, what about everyday applications? "What's the point?" I muttered. "People don't use symphonic sound and animation. They use spreadsheets." Then, blessedly silencing the booming, bouncing ball, a second engineer said, "Now let's turn to the operating system and put some windows on the screen." He flicked 2 windows back and forth as quickly as he could tap the mouse button. I stood up straighter, lost my cynical sneer, gaped rather stupidly, and elbowed my neighbors in the ribs. The Amiga had cracked my armor, with sheer naked power. Let's get technical. All computers are fast. Speed has been their raison d'etre since the barn-sized ballistics plotters of World War II. Even primitive computers can perform calculations, format text, and so on, faster than any human. But the Amiga is blazing fast, eerily fast, preternaturally fast. Watching the demonstration reminded me of a race-prepared 500-horsepower Corvette thundering down the straightaway, only to be effortlessly overtaken by a whining Porsche 935 Turbo. Other micros simply weren't in the Amiga's class. The reason? First, its Motorola 6800 CPU, the same chip found in the Macintosh and many multi-user office systems. The 6800 handles 32-bit data internally, though funneled through 16-bit I/O, compared to the IBM PC's weaker 8088. Second, cheating, by offloading work to custom chips. The Amiga preserves the 6800 for data crunching, while 3 custom chips, Agnes, animation, Daphne, graphics, and Porsche, ports sound peripherals, handle the rest. They provide 20 DMA channels plus a copper coprocessor to control operations. Most important, the blitter, designed to draw lines and move images directly in hardware. It doesn't just make arcade games smoother, it powers the Amiga's Windows and desktop at hardware speed, unlike sluggish software-driven systems such as GEM on the PC. This hot rod hardware made the Amiga quicker than the Macintosh and even the PC-AT. It was no contest. Yours for the tasking. Because the custom chips offload so much work, the 6800 often has time to spare. Commodore's engineers gave it something revolutionary: multitasking. The Amiga can run multiple programs simultaneously, each in its own virtual terminal. Unlike background spoolers or MacDesk accessories, these are fully operational applications. Even programs hidden behind others continue working as if they owned the whole machine. For users, this meant the ability to type a letter while sorting data, play a game while printing, or keep a telecommunications program alive while writing. It was a level of multitasking unheard of in personal computers of the time. The end of integration? In business, integrated software packages, like Lotus Symphony or Ashton Tate's Framework, had promised an all-in-one future, but they were slow, clumsy, and weaker than single-purpose tools. The Amiga's multitasking promised a different path. Let each program be excellent at one thing and run them side by side. Instead of waiting for one big program, users could create their own integrated environments simply by keeping multiple apps open at once. It was a triumph of flexibility and speed, and possibly the death knell of integrated software. Conclusion. Once we learn about the Amiga's role in a big blue world, we can see it as a star in its own right. It can not only do brand new things, voice synthesis, animated boardroom demos, arcade-quality graphics and sound, but also let us do traditional work in brand new ways. It's not insanely great, but it's the most impressive microcomputer hardware I've seen. I'm looking forward to writing about it, using a word processor, in one window, working on one document at a time. I'm a conservative about some things. Contact the author, John Pandaris, care of AmigaWorld Editorial, 50 Pine Street, Peterborough, New Hampshire, 03458. End of. Cynicism and Seduction, Speed and Software. Thank you for listening to another tech history story from the Wayback Stream. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.